Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter. Babylon is fallen. And this chapter, is a very famous chapter, but this goes into the destruction of Babylon, which is America. All right, the final judgment of this place. And this is also likened on to, in Daniel 2, right? The feet of the statue, which is the last, leg of the Roman Empire, or last leg of Rome, second leg of Rome, whatever you want to call it, finally being destroyed. Okay, to bring about the accomplishing of the Lord's great mysterious plan. So this is Revelation 18:1. After these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And how is Babylon going to fall? Through the destruction of World War III, right? And the laser beams that are going to come from the Lord's chariot when he makes his return. And I'm going to read this also in the NLT. It says, he gave a mighty shout, Babylon is fallen, that great city is fallen. Hear that? The great city. Revelation 17 goes into that. That great city is fallen. She has become a home for demons. She is a hideout for every foul spirit, a hideout for every foul vulture, and every foul and dreadful animal. Because after this place is destroyed, nobody's going to come to inhabit this place, as in man. Well, no civilization is going to come over here. As it says, it's going to be a habitation of demons, and foul spirits and desert creatures. They're going to be the ones dwelling here after long after this place has, been burnt and destroyed, and eventually the fire dies down. And now it's just a desert. Verse 3, and also, as a matter of fact, this verse shows you that the fire that's burning in Babylon will not burn for all eternity. Because if that's the case, how is it going to be a habitation of devils or demons or of unclean and hateful birds? Are they going to jump into burning fire? Or are they going to try to breathe in smoke? No. See? Verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And that's basically being influenced under the Western influence of America, right? That corrupts and destroys nations. It says, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. How? Because America is one of the top consumers because of the people in it. So a lot of merchants and sellers from other parts of the world are made rich through the purchases in abundance of America. And that's why if they were to shut down the docks, a lot of people would lose it, because a lot of the things they use and depend on are imported. Okay? NLT says, for all the nations have fallen because of the wine of her passionate immorality. The kings of the world have committed adultery with her because of her desires for extravagant luxury. The merchants of the world have grown rich. You see that? So because of those luxurious desires, those dainties, they make the merchants of the world rich. Verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come up out of her, my people. This is literal, right? This isn't like the Micah 2 and is it 2 and 10? Arise and depart. No, this is literal, that the elect getting beamed up out of America, okay, out of the land into the chariot to be delivered. That ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Because what's going to be her plagues? The destruction, right? The fire that's burning through the land. And if you're not beamed up and you're on this soil, you're on this land, you're going to be a partaker of her sins and of her plagues. You're going to melt. So it says here, 1 second. It says, Verse 5, for her sins have reached onto heaven, right? Her iniquities have reached their limit, right? And the report of that is up to the heavens, right? And the Lord is seeing it, right? And God hath remembered her iniquities. In Revelation 16, it mentions that, right? Revelation 16 and 19. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. See, why did she come in remembrance? Because of her sins, her judgments that were, it was time for that judgment. So likewise, the Lord remembered her iniquities because it was time for her to be judged. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. So what she put us through, right? Remember, she was drunk with the blood of the saints, the suffering and the things that we had to suffer, double right onto her. And here, Babylon, because Babylon is going to be destroyed, but Babylon is a personification of Esau. He is the driver of Babylon. So when it comes to the captivity, the actual land isn't going in captivity, but those that are that are the ones behind all the wickedness and atrocity happening in the land are the ones that are going to go into captivity, which are the Edomites. And double unto her, double according to her works. In the in the cup which she hath filled to her double. See, so it's kind of like payback. NLT, do to her as she has done to others. Double her penalty for all her evil deeds. She brewed a cup of terror for others, so brew twice as much for her. So that judgment is going to be inescapable, right? And you're going to have to suffer double for what you've done. Verse 7, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. And that's why this destruction is going to be unlike any other, because of the sins, right? It is, as it says, it has reached so far, it has reached onto heaven. So they're going to be judged accordingly. It says, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow. Right? That's Ezekiel, not Ezekiel, Isaiah, the 47th chapter should come to mind. And that's the proud mindset that is pushed forth here in America. Right? I'm a queen. I'm not a widow. I'm not helpless like a widow, and I shall see no sorrow. They think that life is going to continue on. America's going to be at the top, never to suffer judgment, but that's being delusional. Delusions. Verse 8, therefore, right, because of that pride and arrogancy and wickedness, shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. So what fire is that going to be? Thermonuclear and divinely inspired heat. Imagine getting burned from the Lord himself's chariot. I mean, intense heat. Okay, not to mention different types of missiles, that are unleashing fire that is the first time that has been unleashed in that magnitude before on this land. For strong is the Lord who judgeth her. That's why she's going to be utterly, completely burned with fire. From New York to Cali. Verse 9, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. Now, why are the kings of the earth going to bewail? Not because they care about Babylon, but because they're going to lose out. See, they lived deliciously with her, right? They reigned with her. They got certain gains. They were put in certain positions, right? Through their deals and stuff that they had with Babylon. So when they see the destruction of Babylon, all that is going to go down the drain. When they see the smoke and the destruction. Standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Nobody's going to be rushing here with freaking helicopters to try and put out the fire over here. Hell no. When you're seeing the kind of destruction come into this place, this isn't a kind of thing you try to use water to put out. We're talking about missiles on missiles on missiles and chariots flying over and then beams coming down, destroying, I mean, nobody's going to try to get close to that. They're going to see it afar off. They're going to see it through satellite imagery, and it's going to be being broadcasted. As it says, in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And as we keep reading on down in the chapter, it'll let you know that's literal. It's going to take literally 1 hour to completely destroy America. And that's what the Lord is going to do. Verse 11, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. Why? For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So how are they going to make money? Their number one customer was America, and now America is destroyed. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and of fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and of fine wood, and in all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments, and frankincense and wine and oil, and fine flour and wheat, and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots, and what? Slaves. Slaves who? Israelite slaves. Because they were bought, they were sold, they were brought, they were hold, they were bold. All right, that's a joke. Here, and traded on the markets, and souls of men. All that was here. Stole that shit. That was all here. That's an inside joke. In America, these are things that were traded or trafficked, for that matter. And the fruits that thy soul lusteth after are departed from thee. See, so the merchants are going to mourn because all their merchandise that they got for selling and trading and trafficking this with America, Babylon is not here to buy that anymore. And all, as it says, the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all, because you're going to be destroyed. And let's go into that word dainty. So this is a complete loss and destruction of this wicked, wicked, wicked society. Things which pertain to a sumptuous and delicate style of living. That's that dainty lifestyle. Spoiled and wicked. NLT says the fancy things you loved so much are gone. They cry, all your luxuries and splendor are gone forever, never to be yours again. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Damn, oh my gosh, reports are coming in. It is completely destroyed. The United States of America has been completely, it's going to be a day to be remembered. That's the judgment of the Lord. And saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. And what that means is there's not a country-sized robe that is put upon this country, but these things symbolize being like exalted. And that's what America is looked at. Even though it's wicked, it's still looked at as an exalted, like a world power. Okay? So that's what they mean by that purple and scarlet and decked with gold, right? And then all of that, it was high up there. That's why it was called a great city. But what? For in 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught. And it means exactly that, naught. Nothing will be left here. Nothing. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off, right? No shipping containers and ships. Nobody's going to be bringing anything over here. Who in the hell is going to be trying to send merchandise by water, seeing the fire and the destruction that's hitting this place? So as it says, they stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. No, no, not America. Yeah, gone, cooked. Verse 19. And they cast down as like that that Walking Dead meme, where Rick, he's looking at his son Carl and he's doing no, no. Yeah, if you know, you know. If you don't, it's okay. Verse 19, and they cast dust on their heads, which is a sign of mourning, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships. So anybody that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. So those that were, dealing with her, bringing shipments and all that, they were made rich by her because of her costliness. Let's go into that word costliness. I mean, people love a good buyer. You look at a lot of even all businesses today, right? They always talk about how can we, improve our customer experience. The customer is always right. They always put the customer first because your money comes from the customer. Your revenue comes from the customer. So it's always about their whoever's buying from them. It says pernicious, costliness, and abundance of costly things. See? So Babylon buys expensive, costly things. And those that make it, they love it because they make money. And that's why they're going to be so distraught by this. Not because they love the benevolence of this place so much. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets. For God hath avenged you on her. Because this place has been nothing but hell and torment. And it said that, right? That she's going to, the beast was going to go and make war with the remnant of her seed that keep the commandments. That persecution upon those that fear the Lord. So finally, the Lord is going to avenge us on this place. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, which this is what a millstone looks like. Millstone. Oh, yeah, this is good. Hopefully it doesn't crash. That's a millstone. Okay, you usually have one on top and one on the bottom. And there's a hole in the center where you would pour the grain, and then you would turn. And one stone is grinding upon the top of another. And what is it grinding? The grain that's in between. Okay, so that's a millstone. And these are heavy. All right, don't get fooled. They're heavy. So because you need the weight of this to be pressing down on this. So whatever's in between that's being turned can actually be grinded. So here it says here, the angel took up the stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea. Now, if you cast something as heavy as a millstone, a great millstone, into the sea, it's not coming back up. It's done. Saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. It's not, Babylon will never rise again. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. No music, no concerts, no BET awards, no none of that. And no craftsman or whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. Right? No workers, no builders, no factories, no nothing. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. The sound in the ancient world, when you heard the sound of a millstone, somebody was working, right? Because they were grinding, and that was actually labor. So that signifies there's going to be no jobs, no working, no labor. All of these things are part of a functioning society, and none of that will be heard anymore in Babylon because Babylon is going to be destroyed. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. No marriages, no lights, nothing. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And it tells you that in Isaiah 47, stand now with thine enchantments, because that's exactly what they do over here, right? They push enchantments, they push sorceries through deception, and that's how they, as it says, all the nations were deceived. That's how they control, both sides of a war. That's how they control the financial system of the world, through deceits and sorceries. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. And it doesn't mean that every single person on the earth that died, but it's of those that were slain here in this land. And that's why it said, rejoice over her, ye apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her, because of the death of the prophets, the blood of the saints. What was it? The scripture, I think it says, precious. Is this the one I'm looking for? Yeah, I think this is the one I'm looking for. It says here, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. So the Lord doesn't take it lightly. You know, when you as this place was drunk with the blood of the saints. And that's why he remembered the iniquity and the sins of Babylon, and finally, you know, brought destruction upon this place. And so that brings us to the end of the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.